Welcome back to our channel. It's hard to imagine that something so small, so ordinary, could become so important. A penny. Just 1 cent. It's the kind of coin most people don't even bother to pick up off the ground. But that's the magic of collecting. It teaches you to see value in things that others ignore. And with the 2003 penny, that lesson becomes clear. This isn't just about money. It's about awareness, about being present, about paying attention to the small details that others miss. The more you look into it, the more you start to realize how fragile perfection is. The minting process for coins is fast, mechanical, and intense. Blanks are fed into machines at high speed. Dies strike the surface with thousands of pounds of pressure. Even a tiny misalignment or dust particle can leave a mark. Most coins come out slightly imperfect. A small nick here, a bit of fading there. That's normal. That's expected. But every so often, a coin comes out just right. No nicks. No fading. The strike is crisp. The shine is flawless. And when that happens, when that coin survives untouched for years, that's when something common becomes something priceless. Now, imagine the journey of this perfect 2003 penny. It didn't get handed out at a gas station. It wasn't thrown into a tip jar. It didn't rattle around in someone's pocket or fall between the car seats. Somehow, it went straight from the mint into protective hands. Maybe it ended up in a sealed mint set. Maybe a sharp-eyed collector spotted its quality early and put it away. However it happened, it was preserved, not just physically, but historically. Because what makes a coin valuable isn't just its metal or age. It's the story it tells, and the condition it's kept in. The Lincoln Memorial design itself had been on the back of pennies since 1959. And even though it's simple, a building, some stairs, tiny little columns, it's actually filled with detail. On high-grade coins, if you look closely enough, you can even see the faint outline of the Lincoln statue inside the memorial. That level of detail isn't visible on most circulated coins because they've been worn down over time. But on a perfect 2003 penny, that little statue stands out. It's a reminder of how even the smallest objects can be carefully crafted and deeply meaningful. For many collectors, that's the thrill of it all. Holding history in your hand. Feeling the weight of time, but seeing no evidence of it. That perfect coin becomes a time capsule. It hasn't aged. It hasn't changed. It's exactly as it was the day it was struck. And that's what makes it so rare, and even more fascinating is how this specific coin went unnoticed for years. Think about it, 2003 wasn't a year people were watching the penny closely. There were no commemorative editions. No changes in design. Just regular production. It wasn't until much later, when grading became more widespread and collectors started looking closer, that the hidden gems began to shine. That's how one coin, just one, managed to go from being worth a cent to being worth more than a luxury watch, or a down payment on a house. There's something poetic about that. It's like life, in a way. The things that seem least important sometimes turn out to be the most valuable. It's not always about being flashy or rare. Sometimes, it's about being consistent. Clean. Untouched. Preserved. And in the world of coins, those qualities are everything. The 2003 penny story also reminds us of how fast things can change in the collecting world. One moment, a coin is common. The next, it's legendary. All it takes is one person to notice. One person to say, hey, this one's different. And once that spark is lit, the value begins to rise. People start searching, comparing, learning. They want to know what made that coin special, and whether they might have one like it tucked away somewhere. That's part of the fun. The mystery. The hunt, and let's not forget the human element in all of this. The people who collect these coins, whether they're seasoned numismatists or just starting out, are driven by passion. It's not just about profit. It's about history, connection, and discovery. It's about finding something others have overlooked and giving it the attention it deserves. The 2003 penny has become a symbol of that spirit. It's inspired people to check their change again, to open up old jars, to examine their collections with fresh eyes. Because who knows? The next big discovery might be sitting in a drawer right now, and that's where the real value lies, not just in the money, but in the experience. In learning about how coins are made. In appreciating the artwork, the craftsmanship, the precision. In feeling the thrill of possibility every time you pick up a coin and turn it over. That's why coins like the 2003 penny matter. They remind us to stay curious. To look closer. To never assume something is worthless just because it's common. So when you hear that a 2003 penny sold for over $100,000, it's not just a headline. It's a story about patience, preservation, and passion. It's about someone who believed in the value of the small things. Who kept looking. Who paid attention. And in the end, that attention paid off, big time, and yes, after all the searching, the waiting, the careful grading, the quiet competition among collectors, after everything, the final value of that one perfect 2003 penny reached an astonishing $112,000. There's something fascinating about how many people pass over a penny like it's nothing. They leave it in parking lots. They ignore it on sidewalks. Some even throw them away, annoyed by their weight in a pocket or the way they clutter up a wallet. And yet, behind the scenes, while millions are tossing them aside, a few people are looking at them with magnifying glasses, gloves on their hands, and a deep, quiet sense of purpose. These are the people who understand that greatness doesn't always come with a spotlight. Sometimes, it comes in the smallest, most overlooked form, like a 1-cent piece from 2012. And let's talk about that for a moment. What makes people care so deeply about something that, to most of the world, is practically invisible? It's not just about money. It's about discovery. It's about the thrill of finding something rare in a sea of the ordinary. It's like fishing in the ocean and reeling in a single pearl. Not because it was flashy, but because you knew what to look for. You trained your eye. You studied. You waited. Every coin has the potential to be extraordinary, at least in the beginning. But then the world does what it always does. Coins are spent. Scratched. Dropped. Bent. Rubbed. Passed from person to person. And with every transaction, a little more of that original perfection fades away. The sharp details on Lincoln's coat lapel begin to dull. The shield on the reverse starts to lose its fine lines. The fields get blotchy, marked, scuffed. All of this happens quickly. Within just days of circulation, a coin can start to wear. And once it's worn, it's gone from the pool of potential greatness. That's why condition matters so much. That's why collectors talk about mint state grades with such reverence. They're not being picky, they're being precise. Because perfection, especially in something meant for everyday use, is astonishingly rare. And in 2012, with billions of pennies produced, it would take something truly miraculous for one to survive completely untouched, but that's exactly what happened. Somehow, somewhere, someone saved that coin. Maybe it was pulled from a fresh roll by a sharp-eyed collector. Maybe it sat quietly in a sealed mint set, protected from light and air and time itself. However it happened, it remained pure. No flaws. No toning. No scratches. The devices, every line in Lincoln's hair, every fold in his jacket, every letter around the rim, stood out with perfect clarity. The fields were like mirrors, smooth and flawless. The edges were clean. It was, for all intents and purposes, a perfect example of what the 2012 penny was meant to be. Now, most people don't talk about coins in this way. Most people never even see a coin like that. But for those who do, for those who have trained themselves to see the details, it's breathtaking. To find a coin that has not just survived but remained unscathed is like finding a piece of time that never moved forward. It's a reminder of what was, of what could have been, if only everything had been handled with such care. It's easy to assume that newer coins aren't worth collecting. After all, how can something so modern, so recent, be rare? But that's exactly the trap so many fall into. They assume rarity has to be ancient. That it has to come with rust, age, and the weight of centuries. But in truth, rarity can come from the present. From precision. From preservation. From the fact that something common has remained in an uncommon state. That's what makes the 2012 penny special. Not because it was the only one made that year. Far from it. It's special because, out of billions, only one, or maybe a handful, came out absolutely perfect. And only one has ever been seen, recognized, and confirmed to be that perfect. That's the difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth 6 figures. It's wild to think about the path that coin might have taken. Maybe it almost ended up in circulation. Maybe someone spent it, not realizing what they had, and it sat in a till for a day or two before a collector pulled it aside, their trained eye catching something in the shine, in the edges, in the crispness of the strike. Maybe it was placed in a sleeve, carefully preserved, and stored in a dark, cool place for a decade before it was finally sent in for grading. Maybe the person who had it didn't even know what it was until the envelope came back from the grading company. That moment, seeing the grade printed on the label, realizing what they had, must have been unforgettable, the feeling of discovering something no one else saw. That's priceless, and that brings us back to the deeper reason why coins like this matter. They're not just about metal. They're not just about age. They're about attention. They're about memory. They're about noticing the things other people don't. And they're about value, not just in terms of money, but in terms of meaning. For many collectors, that's why they do it. Not to get rich. Not to brag. But because every coin has a story, and every once in a while, you get to be part of that story. You get to find the one in a million, or the one in a billion, and hold it in your hand, knowing that you saw what others missed. That it's a quiet kind of magic. The kind you don't notice unless you're paying attention, and this one coin, this 2012 penny that almost disappeared into obscurity, now stands as a symbol of that magic. Not flashy. Not famous. Just flawless. A survivor. A sleeper hit. A tiny sliver of metal that slipped through the cracks of the ordinary and emerged on the other side as something extraordinary. So next time you get change, next time you see a penny sitting on the ground or forgotten in a drawer, don't just glance past it. Look closer. Because the next great discovery could be right there in your hand, and for the one who looked closer, who saved it, who understood what they were holding, that 2012 penny is now valued at an incredible $103,000. It's easy to miss the small things in life. We pass them by every day, quiet, unnoticed, familiar to the point of invisibility. A crack in the sidewalk. A faded sign on a building. A penny sitting on the ground. Most of us step over it. It's just a cent, right? It won't buy anything. It's the coin we toss into jars, drop into vending machine returns, or leave behind in a tray. But sometimes, one of those forgotten coins turns out to be anything but ordinary, and that's exactly what happened with the 2015 penny. The year itself didn't make headlines for coins. No national commemorations. No radical redesigns. Just another year where the United States Mint did what it does best, produced billions of coins to keep the economy humming. Among them, a countless stream of 1-cent pieces. A sea of bright, coppery circles that would soon dull with use, collect tiny nicks and scratches, and start their lives in circulation. Most would be spent, dropped, pocketed, lost, and forgotten. But deep in that ocean, something different slipped through. The story of the 2015 penny begins, like so many others, with Abraham Lincoln's steady profile. That portrait, facing right, solemn and dignified, has adorned the 1-cent coin for over a century. It's instantly recognizable. It's a piece of history that most people carry without even realizing it. His face hasn't changed much since 1909, but the coin around him has evolved more than people think. By 2015, the penny's reverse carried the shield design, 13 vertical stripes, a single horizontal bar, a banner bearing the words, 1 cent. Clean lines. Bold symbolism. The United States, united under one structure. It was a design meant to represent strength, but in a subtle way. No dramatic flourishes, no shouting. Just quiet unity, and it was on this very canvas, this ordinary, utilitarian penny, that something extraordinary happened. You see, coins like these are not meant to be collected. They're produced in such high numbers that most collectors don't even blink at them. Over 9 billion were made that year. 9 billion. That's more pennies than there are people on the planet. So imagine trying to find one single coin in all of that, one coin that was different, that survived in perfect condition. A needle in a mountain of needles, but for those who pay attention, for those with the patience to look closer, that's where the magic lies. Not in what's different, but in what's perfect. Because when a coin is made, there's only a brief window where everything lines up, the pressure is just right, the dies are fresh, the strike is flawless. Most coins fall just short of that invisible standard. Maybe there's a tiny mark on Lincoln's cheek, a faint scratch in the field, a momentary misalignment that no one would ever notice, unless they were looking for it, and someone was, somewhere, somehow. One of those 2015 pennies came off the press like a snapshot of perfection. It had everything: a razor-sharp strike, gleaming surfaces, clean edges, rich color. No flaws. No wear. It was like time had stopped the moment it was struck. And instead of going into circulation, it was preserved. Put aside. Protected. Not because anyone knew what it would become, but because someone understood what they were holding. It's easy to forget just how much care goes into recognizing something like that. You don't just wake up and know what a perfect coin looks like. It takes years of training your eyes, learning the subtleties, understanding the difference between good and flawless. And that's what separates a lucky find from a legendary one. That 2015 penny wasn't just lucky, it was legendary. And legends aren't born every day. What makes this story even more interesting is how silent it was. The coin didn't make headlines when it was struck. No one at the mint made a big announcement. There was no ceremony, no celebration. It simply existed. Quietly. Waiting to be found. It passed unnoticed until someone, maybe digging through a fresh roll, maybe examining mint sets, saw it. Held it up to the light. Paused. Knew, and that pause, that moment of recognition, is what turns a 1-cent coin into a 6-figure treasure, because that's the thing about coins. They're not just metal. They're moments. They're history, and art, and accident, and craftsmanship, all rolled into one. Most of them pass through the world without anyone noticing. But once in a great while, someone notices. And when they do, everything changes. The person who found this 2015 penny may not have known, at first, just how valuable it would become. But they knew it was special. Maybe they compared it to others. Maybe they took it to an expert. Maybe they had it graded, sealed, and stored. Whatever they did, it was the right move. Because while the world went on, that coin waited, untouched, uncirculated, perfectly preserved. It's the kind of thing that makes collectors go back through old rolls, dig out forgotten coins, recheck what they thought they knew. Because if a penny from just a few years ago could become something so rare, so perfect, so valuable, what else might be out there? This is where collecting becomes more than a hobby. It becomes a way of seeing the world. Looking closer. Paying attention. Recognizing beauty in things that seem plain. Seeing potential in what others ignore. The story of the 2015 penny isn't just about money. It's about care. It's about observation. It's about the quiet thrill of knowing something before the world catches on. It's about patience. About detail. About love, for history, for design, for the small things. The things most people walk right past, and in the end, that's what gives the coin its power, not because it's made of gold. Not because it's old. But because, out of billions, it was the one that survived untouched. The one that stayed perfect. The one that was seen for what it truly was, and now, after all this time, after all the eyes that missed it, and the one pair of eyes that didn't, the value of that perfect 2015 penny has reached an unbelievable $99,000. It's hard to imagine just how much history and mystery can be held in something so small. Something so ordinary. A single penny. We see them every day, hear them rattle at the bottom of our pockets, slide across counters, and disappear into trays of spare change. And in 2017, one more year added another layer to the long life of a coin that most people never think twice about. The Lincoln penny, a coin that has traveled across generations, tucked away in purses, stacked in piggy banks, and forgotten under car seats, continued its journey, quietly, subtly, without fanfare. 2017 was not a year that changed the face of the penny. On the surface, nothing about it demanded attention. The design was familiar. On the front, the strong and steady profile of Abraham Lincoln, as it had appeared since 1909. On the back, the Union shield, solid, straightforward, symbolic of the strength and unity of the United States. And that's the beauty of it. While the world changed around it, while technology surged forward and attention spans shortened, the penny remained, small, simple, constant, but even in something so constant, there are moments of exception. In a sea of sameness, one coin stood out. It started, as these things often do, quietly. No headlines. No announcements. Just a glint of copper-colored metal, pressed and minted and stamped at incredible speed. It wasn't meant to last. It was meant to be spent, exchanged, worn down by thousands of fingertips. But somehow, against all odds, this one coin didn't follow that path. It didn't tumble through parking lots or hide in a gum-stained corner of a drawer. It was spared. It survived. And more than that, it stayed perfect. Perfection is a funny thing when it comes to coins. It isn't loud. It doesn't sparkle or shout. It lives in the finest details. The depth of Lincoln's hair, the sharpness of his coat lines, the way the fields catch the light without a single blemish or scratch. Most coins never get close. Even fresh out of the mint, most carry some small sign of their rushed birth, contact marks, pressure flaws, slight imperfections. But this one was different. It came out clean, crisp, unmarked. It was more than just a coin, it was a capsule of time. An untouched moment frozen in copper and zinc. Billions of pennies were made in 2017. Over 8.5 billion, in fact. With so many, it seems almost impossible that any one could matter. They all look the same. Same weight. Same diameter. Same color. But sometimes, what matters isn't what's different, it's what's preserved. Out of those billions, only a handful would have escaped the chaos of circulation. And only one, as far as anyone can tell, stayed absolutely flawless. It's almost romantic, the idea that a coin could live such a quiet life. While its siblings were scratched and scuffed and passed from person to person, this one rested. Somewhere dark. Somewhere cool. Maybe in a freshly opened roll. Maybe in a collector's drawer. Maybe it was spotted by someone with sharp eyes, someone who had seen enough coins to recognize, instantly, what this one was. Or maybe it was luck. A moment of curiosity. A double take. Whatever the reason, it was protected. And that protection made all the difference, because in the world of coin collecting, perfection isn't just admired, it's rare. It's respected. It's hunted. A coin like this isn't valuable because of age or composition. It's valuable because it managed to avoid the world entirely. It slipped through unnoticed, like a whisper, and emerged years later as something extraordinary. Something no one expected, and what's even more fascinating is how most people wouldn't see it. To the average person, it's still just a penny. Still the same coppery glint, still the same familiar face. But to someone who knows, someone who understands the weight of condition, it's different. It's exceptional. It's the type of coin that earns a second glance. Then a third. Then a raised eyebrow. Then silence. Because there's a certain kind of silence that only comes when you're holding something truly rare. That's the silence this coin created. Imagine being the person who found it. Flipping through a roll, maybe, with the usual rhythm, eyes half glazed from repetition. And then, pause. A moment. A break in the pattern. The light hits this one coin just right. You tilt it. Examine the rim. The fields. The surfaces. Nothing. No flaws. No nicks. The portrait is perfect. The shield is pristine. Every letter is bold, every detail crisp. And suddenly you're holding not just a coin, but a mystery. A question. Could this be the one? It's a moment that collectors live for. That instant when routine turns into discovery. When something mundane becomes something magnificent, and that's what happened with the 2017 penny. A simple, small piece of metal, produced among billions, stood out simply by surviving untouched. No flaws. No contact marks. Just purity. And in the world of coins, that kind of purity is almost impossible to find. Over time, word began to spread. Quietly. Carefully. It was shared not as a boast, but as a marvel. One perfect 2017 penny. Graded, preserved, and recognized. It became a touchstone, a reminder that even in the modern world, with its machines and speed and noise, there is still room for rarity. Still space for miracles. Collectors began looking more closely. Checking their rolls. Going back through old boxes, mint sets, spare change. Searching not for errors, not for freak accidents, but for excellence. For perfection. Inspired by one small coin that managed to stay hold up. That's the legacy of this penny. It reminded people that greatness doesn't always scream. Sometimes, it waits. Quietly. Patiently. Hidden in plain sight. And now, that coin, the one that didn't stand out in design, in material, in age, but only in the invisible art of preservation, has earned its place in the world of great American coins. Its final value, after everything, after years of obscurity and a moment of discovery, stands now at an astonishing $92,000.